towards the end of the chapter, or in the material, the Moodle material that goes along with the book, you're going to see this type of a chart. It's not always going to work, but it's going to be a very good first start at identifying which test you should use in a particular situation. Going across the top here, we have the measurement as a ratio or interval. It's an ordinal measurement, or it's a nominal. But this you can also use this test on ordinal interval ratio, or you can also use it on interval or ratio if it's a non-normal distribution. A lot of these tests here, over in these last two columns, are going to be non-parametric. So what we've done is we've compared one group to a hypothetical value. That is found in Chapter 8. Comparing two groups, two independent samples, that is going to be Chapter 9. These measurements of the interquartile range and the median, the proportion, those were covered in earlier chapters. Comparing two paired measurements, again, that's in Chapter 9 also. Then we're going to go on and cover the analysis of variance and other things later on in the course. When we compare variances from two groups, that's the F test. That's also in Chapter 9. So you can see that if you print out a copy of this, it's on the Moodle site, you can see that we're going to go through and fill in and study these different tests. This will give you an idea about how this test differs from this test. You can look over here and see, well, this one's for 3 groups and this one's for 2 groups. Now, another thing that I want you to have some understanding of is a lot of times people have problems with the idea that we cannot accept the null hypothesis. We can reject it, but we can't accept the null hypothesis. And towards the end of this chapter, I give some of the reasons why we can't do that. For example, these are just given right here. And I realize that some students may not have this particular edition of the textbook, so I'll put these up here. We go through and we have a study, and we want to say that this group that goes through and does this exercise regimen, they will lose weight, and the other group that doesn't do the exercise regimen, they will not lose weight. So our null hypothesis would be that there's no difference in the weight loss. So we go through and we do the test. And after we do the test, we run the statistics. Then we find out that the statistics show that there's no difference between the two groups. That is, that the statistics show that there's not a reason to say that that exercise regimen that we came up with had an effect. Well, so if we accept that hypothesis, then that says there's no difference. But if we do not reject it, we still leave a window open there for us to go through and say, well, there still is a difference there, we just didn't find it. And then we could go through and maybe redo the study or something like that. And reasons why we wouldn't find that there's a bias in the experiment. There's a small group size. If the group was too small, we're not going to find a difference. There might have been some errors in the measurements that we used. There might have been some outliers. It could have been that there was a non-normal data distribution, or it could be that we actually used the wrong statistical test. It could be that we used a independent test to see if there's a difference between two independent groups, when actually we could have used a test to see if there's a difference between two paired measurements. And so, as a result of that, that sort of gives you an idea about why we can't go through and say that we accept a null hypothesis. We can always not reject it, but we can't accept a null hypothesis because there could have been some other situation, some other underlying circumstances that kept us from finding a result there. Again, as always, I hope that this video has been helpful in helping you to grasp some of the overall understanding associated with Chapter 9. Again, these are not intended to cover all the material. They're not a lecture over it. They're just intended to be an overview of the chapter and try to help you to see how it ties in with some of the other material that we cover in the course. So again, I do hope that you have a good day. And as always, if you have questions about this, then certainly give me a chance to answer.